All right, we're talking Michigan football again, and that means Aaron McMann is joining us from mlive.com. Don't forget to /Wolverines. How's it going, Aaron?
It's good, Greg. It's good to be back. There's a lot going on. They keep winning, so there's more to
So
talk
you keep
about.
coming back. Yes, as long as they win, you're gonna. If they win one more time, you'll be back one more time. So
That's right.
I hope I see you again.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah. So we're recording this on the 15th. I have no idea when I'm going to post this. So I might post it next week or whatever, just to let everybody know in case I post it, next week as we get closer to the game because we're still 2 weeks away from the game. So I might do it 2 weeks from now. So who knows? Um, but I think it's a perfect time because you're going to get real busy. Christmas is coming up. So I appreciate you doing this, Aaron. All right. So they win the big one, which was just amazing. And I think they did a pretty good job. It was not a surprise that they were battling Purdue for a half. Purdue's a good team, and they've stepped up in competition as we saw all week about how tough they are against AP top 5 teams and all that stuff. So it was not unexpected that that was a tough game. But once again, Michigan just second half. And, that's the confidence level of this team right now. Hearing JJ talk and Donovan talk and everybody talk, they just seem to have this confidence level that is tough to beat right now. And I don't know if TCU's got the talent to stop that kind of a train.
I don't know either. And you're right. The confidence level is at all-time high. It started to rise last year as they kept winning and they kept winning, those key road games. And then you saw what happened in the postseason. But yeah, I mean, there's confidence they're going to be, and it's been really impressive the way they've done it because we talk about Blake Corum being injured and Donovan Edwards playing injured, and maybe them not having maybe the first round receiver maybe that some other teams do. They're clicking on all cylinders at this point, and I think it helps that they've been to the playoff already once. They've kind of gone through this entire
Yeah.
process because the players, the last couple of weeks have been saying last year when they got there that they were just happy to be there. The goal last year was essentially to beat Ohio State, and then they figured once they did that, they'd get to the Big Ten championship. They did all that. Well, they did all that again this year, but they want the goals are higher. So, and they're saying the goal is win a national championship. I don't know. We'll see if that happens, but I think the first logical step to that is winning a playoff game and getting
Absolutely.
there.
It would be
And I think
out of everything they've accomplished this season, if they lose to TCU, it'll be looked at for a little while as a failure. The season.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're here to win. I mean, they want to win, and I think we'll get into it probably here in a little bit, but I think the matchup is very advantageous for them. I think there's a lot going right for them. I think there's a pathway for them to win this game, and it goes back to their offensive side. They're playing very good football. I think from a not only from a player personnel standpoint, but just from a game plan and X's and O's and coaching staff perspective. Everything's going right. It's been it's I don't know. I think last year surprised us just the way the season
Oh, of
played out and the
course.
results. But this year has been a different beast. I think it surprised us in the way that the defense has almost gotten better
Yeah.
without some of
Imagine that.
the key guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've done everything this year, and they actually beat Michigan State. So I don't know. I'm not ready to write this team off. I haven't been all season long. I think there's a real chance that they could win it. They could be a national title, national champion by it's all said and done. But obviously, right now they got to get through TCU first.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And I think it's not just because of the way Michigan is now with McCarthy more equipped to take on, if they play at Georgia, that type of defense, but it's also about Georgia. Because no matter what anybody says, and I'll be talking to Jed May, who covers the Bulldogs with Rivals. I'll be talking to him, and at some point, either before the Ohio State game, and if not, definitely after. And that team is just not as good as last year's team. I think everybody knows that. The talent left I mean, the exodus of talent in the NFL was Georgia. I don't think they've ever seen that. That doesn't mean that they're not a very talented team, because they are. That's the whole idea with all the recruiting and the 5 stars and the heavy 4 stars. And when guys leave, more talent comes up. But again, as good as they are this year, they're still just not last year's team. Now, is that enough to beat them, though? That's what we don't know.
Right, and that's you gotta remember last year Michigan just could
Oh, it was
they
over
were
in
a
the beginning of
physical
the
team
game.
last
Yeah.
year, yeah, and they couldn't keep up. I mean, however much Michigan was physical, like considered physical, Georgia was just as physical and way more, and I think that's going to be the hurdle they got to cross. Assuming they get there and do play Georgia national
And that
championship,
Georgia
can
beats
they?
Ohio State.
Right, right. So there's a lot to happen here. But yeah, it's a question I've gotten a lot in the last couple of weeks. Do you think Michigan's prepared or equipped to handle Georgia this time around? I don't know the answer to that. I think Michigan's just as physical as they were last year, and maybe more so. But you're right. You mentioned J.J. McCarthy, and he's helped add that different dimension to the offense where they can do a few more things than they could last year with Cade McNamara. And is that enough to hold on to the ball long enough and sustain drives and keep Georgia's defense out there longer and keep Georgia's offense off the field? Because if it is, the game could certainly be closer. I don't know if Michigan wins, but it'll be a little bit more competitive. It would put themselves in a situation to possibly win it. So I got to think Michigan's better equipped to handle them, or at least play them. Whether they're good enough to win that championship, I don't know yet. I guess time will tell
I
there.
think we'll know if we talk again, because they're going to play Ohio State, and we know Ohio State. We just played them, so we know, and Big Ten team. So if that happens to be a tough 4 quarter football game that goes down to the last 5 minutes, we'll have our answer. So let's just hope that's the case.
Yeah,
And first things first, as you said, TCU. And look, I am as big as a non TCU fan of Max Duggan this season. I believe I think it was a crime he didn't win the Heisman. I know why he didn't win the Heisman, because it's all politics, and it's always going to be the big teams, and you're never going to give it to the outsider, especially the one that was, the 15th player with 2 months to go. You're not going to make that much ground up. It's just not going to happen. But Max Duggan, to me, epitomized everything that what the Heisman should be awarded about and to those types of players, especially the championship game. Even though he lost, it wasn't his fault. He didn't fumble the ball at the goal line in overtime. He did everything a Heisman candidate type of player is supposed to do in that spot. And and I didn't look at the vote totals, but I'm sure it was still kind of a runaway. But the point is that that type of player, when you go up against him, is going to make your life miserable, and they're not going to be easy to beat. It is not, even if we believe, and I know we do, that we're going to win this game. This is not going to be TCU is going to hang around for a half, and then we're going to do to them what we did to Purdue or whatever. I'm sure, not 100%, but I'm sure, even if we're in that spot, Michigan will find a way in the second half again to win the game. But I think this is a 4 quarter football game. And I would say somewhere around late in the game, Michigan's going to have to make a big stop to put an end to it. That is just a dangerous player. And this is a team that also probably feels they got nothing to lose.
yeah, you hit nail on the head. I did an interview with a TCU writer the other day, and that's kind of how they feel. I think they never just like Michigan last year. They've never been here before. I think they're happy to be there. And you're right, they're kind of playing with house money. Like no one's expecting them to win. I mean, last check they were 7 point underdog. But yeah, Duggan's an impressive player. I mean, I remember talking to the Michigan guys the day after the Big Ten title game, and when the pairing was announced for the playoff, and because Michigan in the Big Ten championship game was Saturday night, they were able to watch that Big 12 title game on TV in the hotel before. And all the players we asked about TCU, and they couldn't stop talking about Duggan. Ronnie Bell was saying that he was going in and out of a nap in the bed. And he said Duggan was keeping him awake with those couple drives. So they know what they're up against. I think they respect him. He certainly put up the numbers this year. He's played, had an MVP type year. Certainly, he deserved to be in contention for the Heisman. But I think TCU in a way is going to go as far as he takes them. I think Michigan's going to have the edge. I think with their offense, TCU is very undersized defensively, and I think it's going to be up to Duggan and TCU to move the football and score some points, especially early on. I kind of put Michigan behind the eight ball and put them on their heels because, as you mentioned, I mean they've certainly been a second half team, especially the second half of the
So
season.
so a big matchup, I would guess, is going to be. And I know TCU has some not just Duggan, but they've got the receiver, the kid Quentin Johnston, and Kendry Miller. We'll get to it in a little bit, but the Quentin
Mhm.
Johnston matchup. The last time we spoke, I asked you. I think it was the last time I asked you who's the best corner on the team, who's the best cover corner. Uh, and it's been a couple of weeks. Has your
Mhm.
mind changed? Because this freshman has
Yeah,
really just upped his game the last few weeks, and is he now the best cover corner on the team?
it's a good question. He's kind of been the talk of the team the last, yeah, you mentioned the last 2 or 3 games. Will Johnson, true freshman out of Grosse Pointe, just out of Detroit. He was looked at as the future of Michigan's defensive backfield when they recruited him last year. He was one of the first commits in that class. He enrolled early, so that they knew what they were getting out of him, and it's really been a gradual rise all season long. I mean,
Yes.
he's went from being a rotational guy, maybe at the beginning of the year, to slowly getting his feet in there and starting it, on occasion, to he's now a bona fide starter. I don't know yet if I want to put him number
Okay.
one, but he's almost there. DJ Turner, they're still leaning on quite a bit. I think he's the more experienced vet here. And I think on a big stage, you probably want to lean toward him, at least at the beginning, just to see how things play out. But yeah, Will Johnson, I think, has been the runaway candidate for maybe newcomer of the year, player, maybe perhaps player of the year defensively. I mean, he had a fantastic game in the Big Ten championship. I mean, I guess you want to talk about big stages. He played fantastic. So I think he might be ready. We'll see. I know they like what they have there, and I think you're going to see a lot of them in the game against TCU.
Yeah, because that's look and Mil- that's what makes them dangerous though, is that Duggan has had such a successful season, but Kendry Miller is one of the top pro prospects at the running back position to come out, and he's going to be on a big stage against one of the top defenses. So that's going to be that's an off, and Duggan can run obviously. So there's a lot to like on that side of the ball. But you were saying about the size advantage, knowing how much Michigan wants to run the football anyway. Is that what you really expect? Is that they're just going to lay on the running game as much as possible, early and
Yeah,
often,
I
to
mean,
try to wear them down by the fourth quarter?
I mean, if I was coaching, that's what I would do. I mean, watching TCU, I've watched a handful of their games now. I've watched some film. They're just undersized across the board. And you got to remember, a lot of the opponents they've been going up against, it's those high flying Big 12 offenses that like to run or like to throw the football. So I don't know if they've seen a ton of smash mouth physical style of play that Michigan's ready to bring. And I think Michigan's going to, I think, recognize early on that TCU can't hang with them, and I expect them to throw it down their, run it down their throat. Across the board, TCU defensively does not rank. There's 57th in scoring nationally, 64th in rush defense, maybe worse pass defense, 83rd. So they've given up yards, they've given up points. Um, I think the recipe for Michigan is do what they've been doing all season long, and run the ball until they stop them. And I don't think TCU is equipped to stop them. Can Michigan throw the ball? Sure, they probably will on occasion. I think you'll see the occasional deep shot like you did against Ohio State, maybe a few trick plays. But if you're Michigan, I would just run the ball until they stop you.
Yeah,
And I don't think they're gonna.
yeah. And again, it's nice to know that what we've talked about with our interviews leading up to the Ohio State game, that JJ can get it done through the air. That was the mystery. That was what we hadn't seen. I don't care what anybody says, because I'm sure there was a lot of people that say, "Oh yeah, they'll do it when they need to," and then those guys are like, "I told you," but nobody knew. Nobody knew whether it could happen, and it did. And look, I know a lot of it had to do with the matchup. So that came into play. They might be second guessing Ohio State now what to do with their defensive coordinator, because we had a name guy too, and it didn't work out in the big game. So who knows what they're going to do if Michigan
And
beats them
that's the
again next
thing.
year.
That Ohio State game, it was just amazing at how many wide open balls they
Wasn't it
had.
like
Like
Don Brown a
Ohio,
few years ago?
yeah, it was exactly that. They were selling out for the run, and, and
Man
yes,
on
Michigan
man.
tried to do it. Yeah, and they left man on man, and Michigan hit enough big plays to make a difference. And that was really the storyline of the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry going back to 17, 18, 19, when Michigan was getting, they had the offense to try and keep up, but the defense just, they were breaking down. There's just too many big plays, and that was the case there. They didn't have to do anything special. They just got enough guys open, and they're wide open receivers. Now, I will say the Purdue game I thought was a little bit better. I thought it was more impressive in a way from the passing game, because you saw guys go up in a couple of instances and go up and get 50-50
Contested,
balls.
yeah.
And that's something and one guy that, another shining star here, another true freshman, tight end, Colston
Oh
Loveland.
yeah.
The kid's going to be really
Yes.
good. I'm already hearing comparisons to Jake Butt from folks inside the program and out. They really like what they have there. And again,
Maybe
another
even better
kid,
though,
another,
because he seems
yeah,
to be a little bit
maybe.
more athletic, maybe. And
Hmm.
But who knows what kind of career Butt would have had, injuries and stuff like that. But yeah, that's a great comparison.
Yeah, so again, another instance of a true freshman making an impact, and on the big stage too. These kids seem unafraid. You talked about the confidence and everything else. I mean, Michigan, they've got everything going for them, and they're clicking, they're gelling. I don't know. I have a hard time imagining TCU winning this game, but
Hey, it's the
TCU's
playoffs.
there for a reason.
This
That's right.
isn't Maryland. This isn't
Hmm.
Purdue. This is if you don't come to play your best game, and it's just not your day, and you turn the ball over, whatever, you're not getting the calls. This it's one and done, and you're out. So, but yeah, I agree with you, and I think most Michigan fans do. That's why I said I think it would. I think we would consider the season a big letdown if they were unable to accomplish their main goal, and that's win a playoff game. Um, Now, Donovan Edwards will be a month. He'll have a month after between starts. So, is there going to be? I mean, does he still wear the cast?
That's a good question. I have not seen in a couple of weeks. I don't know where the
Okay.
progression is there. I will say there's probably a chance he doesn't, or maybe something smaller. But whether that impacts whether he can carry the ball with his right hand, dominant hand, I don't
Okay.
know. Because I think if it's anything close to, if he's not 100%, I think he's still going to carry it with the left. But as we've seen, it really hasn't made much of a difference. I mean, he's still been able to break some of these big runs and
Yep.
everything. So he will be closer to 100%. I don't know how close, but I got to think it works well. Now, the bigger question with the hand with Donovan is if he is close to 100%, it opens the door to him maybe potentially catching passes, and that was
Yes.
something we saw early in the year and
Yes.
out of the slot. So it makes him, it creates another dimension for him in the passing game. Now I don't know if they want to use him in that
Well,
regard and risk getting, him, damaging it or whatever. But it's another
yes,
option.
and that's the thing, because you know what? If they do play a team like Georgia in the championship game, they're going to need every potential option, and the kid is so talented, especially as a receiver, that you don't want to not use that if you can, and hopefully they'll be able to. So now, as far as the running game, I do want to bring up Corum. Another travesty of the Heisman was not having Corum at the ceremony. I mean, what were they thinking? I mean, just because he gets injured the last two games of the season, here's a guy that would have won the award if he would have been healthy. He goes out the last two games, he doesn't get invited. Anyway, uh, he's not playing, right? We'll just put that to bed.
No, he's out for the year. He's been ruled out with he had surgery. They at first I think there were rumblings that he was going to try and be back in time, but that's apparently been put to bed. He's not going to give it a go, and I think there's part of him probably thinking long term here.
Absolutely.
If he doesn't indeed leave Michigan and choose to go to the
Yeah.
NFL, he doesn't want to risk damaging it,
Yes.
because you got to remember running backs, as you know, I mean the shelf life is
Yes.
short with those guys, so you got to try and maximize your time and your
I think he has to
productivity.
go to the
So
pros.
it's going to be a very interesting decision. And the one thing that's changed things maybe now compared to maybe a few years ago is the NIL situation. If he's looking at his pro prospects, and he's being graded as maybe a fifth or sixth round
Oh
pick.
no,
Uh, and yeah,
that would be the
and
case. No.
and he's looking at NFL, or if an NIL comes up and Michigan's willing to offer him, 100,000, 150,000 to stay, it might come into play, but it depends on where his where his
Yeah,
outlook is
I
right
know,
now.
I know his height is definitely going to be against him, but I just think a player like that and his talents, as long as he has a clean bill of health deal, and maybe he drops around this offseason because of the injury, maybe even two. But if he's healthy, there's no problems. I still think he's up there to maybe potentially even a third round draft pick. He's just too uh, enticing and exciting and dangerous of a player that you just can't pass him once you start getting to those types of rounds. So receiving situation. So you got Bell, you got Johnson. Schoonmaker's going to be even healthier, correct?
Yeah, he will probably be. I mean, he was playing the last couple of games, but you could tell he wasn't 100%. They weren't targeting him a ton. And he did get a couple of catches
Yeah.
in the Big Ten title game, but he wasn't near the effective pass catchers we'd seen early in the year. So I would presume he's close to 100%. Someone told me, and again, that Michigan isn't big on disclosing injury stuff, but I heard it was something to do with his arm or something about arm injury, whether shoulder or
Okay.
something. So I would presume he's going to be closer to 100%. But that would certainly explain why he hasn't been a big part of the
Okay.
offense the last
And
month
of
or so.
course, you mentioned Loveland. So another month of training for the freshman is, we're going to see a few big plays possibly out of him. And then we talked about Edwards, and of course, Andrell Anthony is always capable, as is Roman Wilson, who we talked about the last time. That I wouldn't be surprised if there's a way to try to get him the ball again, like we did earlier in the season, because he's kind of been non-existent. Matter of fact, just taking a look at his stats overall, if you look at it after week 4, really, or the first time that he missed action against Indiana, he has only had 30, 26, 30, 39 yards receiving since the Iowa game. No way you would
Yeah.
have thought that after the start he got off to.
No, I mean he was their primary guy through the non-conference schedule. They were getting him open in the screen game, and he was busting big plays. And you thought that would translate to the Big Ten schedule, and it hasn't. Like you said, he missed the Indiana game. I think he was dealing with an illness. He might have been injured at one
Yeah,
point.
they might not be telling us
But
something. So yeah, hopefully
yeah,
that's what I'm
but
saying. Hopefully the extra month and film room, and they'll find a way to get him open again.
you would think you would want that speed. He's got good speed, and he's shown that he can do it. So, and him and Andrew Anthony, like you said, it's another mystery. They haven't utilized him a ton either. But you would think, as they get closer to the end of the season, they're gonna. I mean, they busted out the ton of plays from the playbook against Ohio State. You think they're going to try and empty things here in these final couple of weeks. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they both get involved in some
And by the
capacity.
way, Bell Johnson, they're both going to go pro at the end of this year.
Yeah, Ronnie Bell's already accepted an invite to the
Okay.
Senior Bowl, and I know there's been no official word yet on Cornelius, but I was told before the season started from a NFL scout person that they were expecting
Okay.
Cornelius to leave after the season. No official word yet on him. I think he'll probably go, but again, it's gonna be in a situation where he's gonna look at his prospects and see where things
So
stand.
that means next year you might have Roman Wilson and Andrell Anthony as the top receivers on the team, top wideouts on the team. So yeah.
Yep. Yep. And they really like the freshman Amarian Walker. I think he'll probably be more involved
Okay.
too. But at that point, again, he'll only be a sophomore. But they like what he was kind of the talk of the offseason, the spring and the fall camp. So I think they'll probably try and get him more involved next year
Well,
too.
let me ask you, because this happens in these when you got a month, is if there was a freshman young player that has not played much, has not put up stats, that we could see have, whoa, wait a second, where did that guy come
Hmm.
from? Who would it be on offense?
Yeah, it'd be
It
Amarian
would be.
Walker. Yeah, he's got good speed from what I've been told. I mean, we've seen him a little bit, but not a ton. I think he's got good ball. They said they rave about his ball skills too. So he might be the guy, but again, it's going to probably come down to how much Michigan wants to throw the ball
Sure.
and whether they need him or not. But yeah, in a normal like non playoff bowl situation, if this was like,
Hey, let's get the
you
the
know,
kids.
yeah, yeah, he would probably be one of those guys that they would certainly throw out
Well,
there. I
you
mean,
never know. Still
certainly.
possible.
Yeah.
Could happen. But
Oh
like
yeah.
you said, yeah, it's kind of hard when you don't throw the ball a lot. There's only so many balls to go around for those other receivers too. So,
Yep.
okay. And defensively, Mike Morris going to be okay?
I
He's
that's a
got to
good
be. Come
question.
on, another month.
He Yeah, he didn't play in obviously the Big Ten title game. He said that he tweaked something. I don't know if it was a hamstring or an ankle or what, but he wasn't. He was in straight close to the title Big Ten title game. I suspect he's going to try and give it a
Yeah.
go. I mean, he did try against Ohio State, didn't work out. But yeah, I mean, you're a month removed. You think you would? I mean, but we'll see. No word
And
yet.
then Mozzie Smith, his personal, that stuff is not even going to be, that's out of the way. It's going to be, they're not going to get to it until after the playoffs.
Correct. Yeah. In fact, it was interesting because originally his sentencing was supposed to be December 29th, a couple days before the Fiesta Bowl, and they announced today actually they moved it back to January 12th. So I'm assuming he was going to play anyway, but I certainly would have affected his week. I think he would have flown out there with the team and then had to fly back for the sentencing and then fly back for the game. But he's not going to do that now. So yeah, he's there's been no change of status for him. He's still practicing. He's still going through, and he's going to
You know
play.
what I really like about this defense, and like, of course, last year it was mainly Hutchinson, and really you could say the same thing, not just Hutchinson, but you could say, yeah, I guess Ajabo, Hutchinson were the top
Mhm.
names, but Daxon Hill was also a big part of it. This year, it's like what I like about it is seeing guys like Michael Barrett, Sandra still, of course, moving over. Uh, and then a lot of the young players that have stepped, some of the young players like a Mason Graham who stepped up. We just talked
Yep.
about Will Johnson in the secondary. You know, you've seen plays here and there in Ohio State from like McGregor.
Mhm.
Upshaw made a play, but there seems to be there are some really nice players. I like some of the players that this team has this season. I just think that when these players come into the draft, they'll be like third, fourth, fifth round draft picks. But I think they're going to be. I think they might be better pros than they were statistically as far as a college. And I just and I think we'll be able to look back, especially if they win the national championship, and go, now you know why.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think Michigan's done a very good job of not overexposing a lot of these guys. Like that was the thing last year. Like it seemed like every snap of every game Aiden Hutchinson
Yeah,
played. And as the year went on, David Jabo gobbled up a lot of those. It was the same guys playing almost every snap. Now they were rotating on occasion, but it wasn't what you're seeing this year. They've done a good job of kind of like looking at each individual player and saying, okay, you're good at this. We're going to play you here, and then we're going to sub. We're not going to be afraid to sub you out for another guy. So they've done a very good job of substituting and kind of changing base packages and changing disguises, and they've been blitzing more from the secondary, and it's been. I don't know. It's weird because yeah, we came into this year and that was the biggest question mark, right? Is how are they going to place Hutchinson and Jabo and they haven't really done it just from a production standpoint, but they got enough of guys that collectively have been able to
they're
do it.
better in the back seven by far
Yes,
this year than
yes.
that, and that helps.
Now part of it's
Yes,
experience.
yes.
Yeah, they've been around a year now. I think they've schemed better, and I think Jesse Minter. We talked a lot about Mike McDonald's IQ last year as defensive coordinator, and he's a smart dude. I mean, he went on. He's the coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens right now. So kudos to him. But Minter might be even smarter. And I don't know if it's just him. I don't know if it's the defensive backs coach, Steve Klinkscale. They brought on a new defensive line coach, Mike Elston, he was ready to be a coordinator himself. So I think you got a lot of smart guys in there. And they think just schematically, X's and O's, they've done such a good job of going from one half to another and adjusting and kind of seeing what the opponent's running and changing things schematically in the back end. And I think that's been a big reason too. So
Minter, I just think it's going to be work out better for Michigan because I think the only way Minter leaves is maybe he gets a head coaching job.
yes.
So, and I don't think that's going to come along. Maybe
Yeah.
next year if they really do well again, and so forth and so on. But he'll be back next year. Unlike, oh wow, we lost McDonald. What are we going to do? And
Hmm.
so I don't think we have to worry about that until maybe hopefully 2024.
I tend to agree. I mean, Mike seemed like he was ready to get back to the NFL. I think there was part of him that didn't like the recruiting aspect of the college job, and I don't blame him.
Oh yeah,
A lot of folks come into this thing,
you
especially
gotta
never
love
having
it.
done it
You have to
before.
love it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think Minter's been around enough. His dad is a former college head coach, so he gets it. He's been around, so I think he embraces it a little bit more. And you're right, the door is kind of closed this coaching cycle for him to take a head coaching job. So I don't think he'll leave. He'll probably be around for another year. I think that's good too. The players seem to have really liked him and kind of rallied around him. So,
I mean, he could get
there
a
was
defensive coordinator job in the NFL, but I just think it was so much easier for McDonald because of the relationship in Baltimore.
yes,
It was just an
right,
easy
yeah,
transition, and I
yep.
don't think
And
Minter
he
has that
keep
kind of
coming.
deal waiting for him. So
No, no, not unless McDonald gets fired
yeah,
or
right.
something. I don't think that's
No,
going to
that
happen,
ain't
right?
happening. Uh,
At least not
all
right
right,
now.
now before I let you go, so transfer news. Since I have you here, and uh, the big news I just saw. Matter of fact, I was interviewing Steve Marek, who covers the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and he was talking. It's funny because he goes, we were going over, the coaching change, and then I was asking about transfer, and he goes, yeah, there's this kid, Hausman, linebacker,
Mhm.
freshman. Oh, what a great job he did! And unfortunately, it looks like he might transfer. He's like the big, that's the biggest disappointment of somebody leaving the program. And so when I heard Michigan landed a linebacker from Nebraska, I was like, oh, please tell me it's the same dude. And it happens to
It
be.
is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it came out of nowhere because Michigan's been very active in the portal the last couple of weeks. They've had players enter. They've been offering a lot of guys scholarships. Some guys have publicly named Michigan as a finalist or whatever the case may be. That this kind of came out of nowhere. It was a little bit of a surprise, but when you think about it, it's not because Michigan is kind of lean there at the linebacker position. Depth isn't a key, isn't a big thing there. So I think they all the help they can get, they'll take. This kid seems like Michigan recruited him in high school. He had an offer from them, a couple of
Okay.
years back. So it's not like they're unfamiliar with him. And now he's got a year of play on tape. He was very good. He put up numbers. He played particularly well against
Yeah.
Michigan. I think he had 10 tackles against Michigan.
Oh.
So
And he's got 3 years of eligibility left.
yes, yes. So I think they'll take him. I don't know if he'll start right away, depending on what happens with Michael Barrett and the linebacker position. But I mean, he'll be part of the defense. He'll probably be a big part of it, and they'll certainly utilize him.
Yeah, the only other big name I heard was the offensive lineman from Arizona State,
Hmm.
the
Yep.
tackle. So
Ladarius Henderson. He's committed. They offered. They're a finalist for outside Josiah Stewart. He's an outside linebacker at Coastal Carolina.
okay,
He's down to Michigan, USC, and LSU, I believe.
okay.
But they're in the running for him as well. He seemed like more of an edge rusher type. Again, a guy that can come in and kind of throw at the quarterback. He had a pretty good year at Coastal Carolina. Obviously, the head coach there left, so you get a lot of those guys hitting the portal.
Yeah, I look. I know a lot of people. Oh, how is Michigan not a top 10 recruiting team, even with all the success they're having? And look, when you can coach and you could identify talent, and then you've got the transfer portal. It's just you don't have to have these. Sure, it's a luxury. It's great if you could be like Georgia and have waves and waves and be elite. I get it. I understand it. But there's nothing wrong, especially when you start winning. That's when that transfer portal makes it a lot easier for kids to
Mhm.
go because that's all they're seeing now is Michigan the last 2 years in playoff time and big games, And I think this is a great time to be a Michigan fan again. If we've had a drought, the drought's over. It was important to put a stamp on last season, this season, the legitimate stamp that it wasn't just a 1 year thing. And this is, again, yeah, this is going to be a great time, a great period to be a Michigan fan. And hopefully we can knock down that the next big hurdle, the biggest, and that is, of course, winning the national championship. And what no better time to do it than this season. So,
Yeah, they're in position. A lot of momentum going. You got to give Jim Harbaugh credit. I mean, just a couple of years ago, folks were criticizing him, and there were some folks wanted him gone, and
oh, yeah.
everything else. And he got a little nudge from I think the athletic director, but he cleaned house with the coaching staff. They kind of went back to basics offensively, and it's worked out for him. That's for sure.
Yeah. understatement there. It's like, yeah. So this is great. Let's hope that we talk again, and that would be sometime in the first week of January. Crazy that there's going to be two big playoff games on New Year's Eve, but that just be at least our game's first. I'm
That's
glad
right.
about. I don't have to wait,
Yeah.
to the night game and be up to like 12 o'clock and at night
Yeah,
with like a big
you
four
get to
quarter
celebrate
game.
the new year too. From a media standpoint, it's even better because the game's obviously in Arizona. And it's a 2 p.m. kickoff
There
there,
you
so
go.
we
Okay,
actually watch the game, cover the game, be done with everything, and
good point.
have an hour or two to celebrate the new year. So
That's right. Okay.
I can
So
remember last year we were in the press box because it was the peach or the Orange Bowl, and it was the night game, and the game was over, but it was we had to celebrate in the press box.
what day was that of the
Uh, it
year?
was it was New Year's Eve,
It
same thing.
wasn't New Year's Eve,
Yep,
also.
yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, just let's just fingers crossed. These are always the toughest ones, though, because these are with the ones that you expect them to win. We're not the underdogs and all that, kind of like
Right.
the Ohio State game, the Purdue game, even though we were expected to win. That's not a playoff team.
Right.
We're in the playoffs. We're expected to win. It's going to be tough. But yeah, I hope we talk again first week of January, and then we have the championship game, because I'm not going to be disappointed if they lose in the championship game to Georgia. I don't think there's anything to be disappointed about that. And hey, you know what? Let's hope Ohio State gives them a game.
Yeah.
So
And you as a Michigan fan, you want them to keep rising. If that's this year, if it's just incrementally and getting to the national
yes,
championship, like, hey, it's a success because you accomplished everything you did last
moved
year
up a
and you beat
spot.
Michigan State, and then you get
Yes,
one step higher. Obviously, the gravy on top would be winning the national championship, and maybe they'll get there. We'll see,
let's
but
hope.
we'll cross that bridge if and when we get there.
I don't even want to think about the possibility of playing Ohio State again. So I'm not even. That's why I haven't even talked about it. I just don't even want to. That would just be too crazy of a scenario to anticipate the game in the championship game. So I'll leave that to our hopeful discussion the first week of January. We'll see if that even is something that we have to talk about. Because look. You can say what you want. Maybe it'd be better because you wouldn't have to play Georgia, but I'm not even worried about one of those things. Let's just take care of our own business, sit back, relax, watch the other semifinal game, knowing that we're going to be in the championship game. That's what I'm looking forward to on New Year's Eve. So, Aaron, appreciate it. When are you going out there? Are you
We
going
fly.
out there?
I am. Yeah, we fly out Christmas night, late night. So
Oh, wow.
we'll be there. The team gets in the 26th, so they'll be
Okay.
there a full week before.
Traveling on Christmas. So you'll be celebrating Christmas Eve at home?
No, we'll get everything done on Christmas Day. We don't fly
Christmas
out of
Day?
Detroit until like 9 o'clock Christmas night.
Late.
So
Okay.
yeah, yep.
Well, best of luck, safe travels, and again, looking forward to hopefully talking to you the first week of January.
Absolutely. Happy holidays to everyone watching.
Absolutely. Happy holidays to all Michigan fans. Go blue. And again, hopefully we'll see everybody in January.